They say some rules were made to be broken, but in America, it depends on who's breaking them and who's being protected when they are. For Shanice Williams, a waitress with aching feet and a worn-out name tag, one late-night decision at Jerry's Diner would cost her not just her job, but her place in a system that had always punished black women for speaking too loud, caring too much, or refusing to look away. It didn't start with some grand act of rebellion. No hashtags, no speeches. Just a simple, instinctive choice. Step in when four white men thought they could get away with taunting a quiet black woman sitting alone. You should smile more. Didn't know they let y'all in here this late. You got a name, sweetheart, or just an attitude? It was 11:45 p.m. The coffee had gone stale. Shanice had already logged 10 hours on her feet and was refilling the sugar dispensers while half listening to the bell above the door. She turned around just in time to catch the smirk of the loudest guy in the booth, his beer breath cutting through the air. And then she saw her. The woman in the tailored gray coat. Calm, composed, her chin lifted just enough to show she wasn't scared, but not so much to invite more. Shanice didn't know the name yet, just that the woman didn't flinch, didn't speak, just sat there, waiting for her check like this was just another Tuesday. "Gentlemen," Shanice said, setting the sugar jar down and walking straight toward them, her voice steady, her jaw tight. "If y'all are done disrespecting my customer, feel free to leave. Actually, scratch that. Go ahead and leave anyway." The booth fell silent for a second. Then came the snickering. "Excuse me?" the guy in the flannel asked, puffing out his chest like a bad joke come to life. "You don't get to tell paying customers to leave, sweetheart." Shanice didn't blink. "I do when you cross the line. And you crossed it 3 comments ago." One of them mumbled something about attitude problems and black women in their mouths. But they got up. Slowly. Tossed a few crumpled bills on the table and shuffled out, pretending not to care. The woman in the gray coat nodded once at Shanice, then went back to stirring her tea. "You okay?" Shanice asked. The woman met her eyes, voice calm but clear. "I'm used to worse, but I appreciate you standing up anyway." Shanice half smiled. "Where I'm from, silence is complicity." She grabbed a clean cup. "Coffee's on me." She didn't know she was being watched. She didn't know she had just served the most powerful attorney in the state of New York. She didn't know that standing up for a stranger would soon mean standing in front of an entire movement. What she did know, as she glanced up at the security camera and then over at the kitchen clock ticking toward midnight, was this. If this moment was going to cost her something, it better be worth it. Brad reviewed the footage every morning like it was his personal episode of CSI Diner Edition, and Shanice knew the timestamp would be glowing like a neon confession. But regret? Not even close. You don't regret tossing 4 bloated loudmouths out of your booth when they treat another human being like a punchline. Especially not when that human being turns out to be the Attorney General of New York, sipping her chamomile tea like a queen in disguise. And no, Shanice didn't know that part yet. All she knew was that decency still mattered, and so did the soft "thank you" Letitia gave before returning to her tea, unbothered, unbowed. When the woman left, she did so quietly. No drama, no flourish, just a crisp nod and a small envelope under her saucer. Shanice nearly dropped the thing when she saw what was inside. 5 $100 bills folded like a blessing. No note, no name, just quiet power delivered with precision. Enough to cover Destiny's basketball camp, plus groceries for the week, and maybe, just maybe a new pair of sneakers that didn't squeak like wounded ducks. By the time she locked up the diner at 12:30 a.m., Shanice wasn't tired. She felt lighter, empowered, and completely unaware that her act of defiance had been cataloged, filed, and marked. Potential leadership candidate, high integrity, situational courage. Meanwhile, outside, a black SUV melted into the night. Inside, Letitia James, who'd spent her day arguing down a corrupt landlord and blocking a shady state contract, was already planning her next move. At 6 a.m., Shanice's alarm sounded like it had a personal vendetta, but her mood was too good to kill. Destiny bounded into the kitchen already in her school jersey, dribbling an invisible ball like she was in the WNBA finals. "Mama, Coach Johnson said I might be team captain." Shanice kissed her daughter's forehead. "And guess what? That camp you've been dreaming about? It's on." Destiny gasped. "But you said—" "I know what I said. But sometimes the universe slides a tip across your table when you least expect it. Pancakes shaped like basketballs hit the pan, and hope filled the kitchen like morning light. The good mood, unfortunately, ended the moment she stepped through Jerry's front door. "My office!" Brad barked like he'd just caught someone stealing ketchup packets. And there he was, hunched behind his desk. Security footage paused at exactly 11:47 p.m., finger stabbing at the screen like he was presenting evidence to The Hague. "Care to explain this?" Shanice folded her arms. "Sure. I threw out 4 grown men harassing a customer. Then I let her finish her tea in peace." Brad leaned back like he'd just been personally offended by the Constitution. "You know the rules. No customers after 11:30. What if she'd been dangerous? What if she'd—" "She was drinking tea, Brad, not holding up the register." "Insurance doesn't cover violations, Shanice, and this isn't your first offense. Extra food, staying late, making exceptions for people who say they're hungry." "Those people are hungry," Shanice snapped, her voice rising. "And you know what? Last night's customer was Letitia James' silence, then a laugh, sharp, bitter, and pathetically defensive. Right, and I'm Joe Biden." He stood, smugness oozing from every pore. "You're fired, Shanice. Apron and name tag. Final check in 2 weeks. 8 years of loyalty, gone in 30 seconds of bad theater." Shanice unpinned her name tag with shaking fingers, imagining Destiny's camp money now rerouted to cover rent and expired cereal. Out in the parking lot, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Is this Shanice Williams?" came a crisp voice. "Yes. Who's calling?" "I'm calling on behalf of Attorney General Letitia James. She'd like to meet with you this morning at our Charlotte Field office." Shanice stared back at the diner. Brad was still at the window, watching like a prison guard spotting a jailbreak. I guess I'm available now," she replied, heart pounding. "What's this about?" "She'll explain everything in person. Can you be here in 30 minutes? Shanice took a breath, remembering the look in that woman's eyes, the quiet strength, the envelope. She thought about Destiny's dreams and Brad's smug laugh. "Yes," she said. "I'll be there." As she turned onto the road leading downtown, the question nagged her like a pebble in her shoe. Was she walking into another mistake, or finally stepping onto the path meant for her all along? One thing was clear. Whoever that woman was last night, she hadn't just come for tea. She'd come to watch, to test, to decide. And Shanice had just passed the kind of test they don't put in employee handbooks. The question wasn't just why, it was why her. And it wasn't just a question anymore. It was a calculation run through the well-oiled legal mind of Letitia James as she stood in her glass-walled office overlooking Charlotte. The report on her desk was short but potent. Shanice Williams, 8 years at the same diner, single mother, working 2 jobs, still found time for volunteer shifts at the local community center. No scandals, no nonsense, just the kind of quiet integrity that usually gets ignored, unless someone like Letitia James was deliberately looking for it. "Send her up the moment she arrives," Letitia told her assistant, not bothering to hide her smile. "And get the foundation board on standby. I think we've found our pilot lead for the Equal Path initiative." Down below, Shanice sat frozen in her beat-up Toyota Corolla, staring up at the polished monolith of marble and glass like it had dropped out of a different America, one with functioning air conditioning and salaries that came with benefits. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel like she was preparing for takeoff. The only turbulence so far? Getting fired for protecting a black woman from a table of entitled drunkards. But in Brad's world, rules mattered more than reality. Harassment was a gray area. Helping someone was insubordination. Apparently, the real sin was not asking for permission to have a moral compass. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "We all tried to talk to Brad. He won't listen. We're gonna miss you so much." The tears welled up immediately. 8 years of carrying that diner on her back, of brewing coffee for Mrs. Johnson every Tuesday, of sneaking pancakes to little Tommy when he wandered in from the shelter looking like hunger wore his shoes. Gone in 60 seconds because Brad thought insurance compliance was more important than human dignity. "Get it together," she muttered to herself, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her uniform. It was still clean, still pressed. Her mother had drilled that into her. Always show up with dignity, no matter how hard the world tries to strip it from you. Shanice checked the mirror, pulled her shoulders back, and walked toward the building like it was her right to be there, which, despite the voices in her head, it was. Inside, the security guard blinked at her uniform, then at his tablet. "I'm Shanice Williams," she said, steadying her voice. "I got a call about a meeting with Ms. James?" His posture changed instantly. A phone call, a quick nod, a visitor badge with 43rd floor printed in bold letters. Suddenly, she was someone. That's the magic of powerful black women. They make systems move without ever raising their voice. The elevator ride felt like it lasted a decade. Shanice kept replaying the night before in her head. The words, the tone, the quiet elegance of that woman sipping tea while 4 grown men tried to provoke her like schoolyard bullies in golf polos. And now this. Patricia greeted her at the top floor, a no-nonsense woman with heels that could probably win a war and eyes that didn't miss a thing. "Water? Coffee?" "Water," Shanice whispered. It was all she could trust her throat to accept. Patricia guided her to a plush waiting area overlooking the city, where Jerry's diner looked like a toy in the distance. Funny how different things seem when you're not beneath them. Her phone buzzed again. "Had the best practice ever, Mama. Coach says I'm killing it with 3s. Love you. Destiny. Always managing to bring her back to earth and remind her what was at stake." Shanice took a long sip of water just as the door behind her opened. "Ms. Williams," came the voice, deep, composed, unmistakably familiar. Letitia James stepped into the room without fanfare but with an authority that made the walls seem to straighten. No gray coat, no shadows this time. She was sunlight and structure, confidence in human form. Shanice stood quickly, unsure if she was supposed to curtsy or salute or just faint. "I hope you don't mind," she stammered, "that I didn't say anything last night. You seemed like you wanted privacy." Letitia's smile was small but warm. "That's exactly what I wanted, and you gave it to me. No spectacle, no special treatment, just dignity and tea." She gestured to the seat across from her. "But that's not why I asked you here." Shanice sat down slowly, still reeling. "It's not?" "No." Letitia leaned forward. "I've been watching that diner for weeks. Watching you. Not because you broke the rules, but because you bent them for the right reasons. I don't need a compliance officer in this new program. I need someone who knows what courage looks like at 11:47 p.m. I need someone who does the right thing, even when the manager is breathing down her neck, quoting liability policy." She paused. "I need someone who lives the mission before it's printed on a brochure." Shanice blinked. "Me?" Her voice cracked like the question didn't believe itself. "But I just lost my job." Letitia didn't flinch. "And you earned something better. You didn't fold. You didn't explain away injustice. You just handled it. That kind of leadership isn't trained, it's revealed." She sat back. "You've been leading quietly for years, Ms. Williams. I'm just here to offer you a louder microphone." Outside, the sun had risen over Charlotte like the city was holding its breath. And from the 43rd floor, it looked like a map of opportunity. But for Shanice, this wasn't just a new chapter. It was the part of the story where the protagonist realizes she's never been a side character at all. "That wasn't the first time, was it?" Letitia asked, her tone not accusatory, but knowing, like someone reading a case file on your soul and seeing the verdict before you speak. Shanice didn't answer right away. Her mind flicked through 1,000 unpaid kindnesses like receipts in a waitress's apron pocket. The hot meals slid across the counter to kids who couldn't pay. The extra minutes she gave to seniors with no one else to talk to. The quiet generosity that never made headlines, mostly because it was done by a black woman in an apron, not a politician in a blazer. "No," she finally said, voice low but steady. "It wasn't. And that was it." Letitia nodded like she'd expected nothing less. "That's why I'm offering you a job." The words dropped with all the weight and precision of a gavel. Shanice blinked. "A job?" "Not just any job," Letitia clarified, sliding a gold-trimmed business card across the table. "Director of Community Justice Initiatives. You'll oversee our regional youth expansion program here in Charlotte." Shanice stared at the card like it was written in another language. "I don't have a degree," she murmured. "I've never run anything but a diner booth. I mean, I'm just a—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence," Letitia interrupted sharply. "You're not just anything. You're exactly what this initiative needs. Someone who sees people, not profiles. Someone who doesn't need a press release to know what justice looks like." She walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows and gestured at the city below. "You think I don't have resumes stacked up from Ivy League alumni who've never missed a brunch? What I don't have is someone who lives the mission before they get paid to preach it." Knock, knock. Patricia entered like a well-dressed plot twist, handing over a thick employment folder with all the trimmings. Salary, benefits, job scope. Shanice opened it and gasped at the number staring back. It was more than she'd made in both her jobs combined, and that was before the retirement plan and health insurance. And then came the final kicker, Letitia's version of a mic drop. Full scholarship access for Destiny, all programs, year-round, coaching, mentorship, real pipelines. Shanice's hands trembled around the folder like it was laced with electricity. Why me? She whispered again, trying to absorb the absurdity. Letitia leaned in. Because last night wasn't random. I've been walking into stores, diners, clinics, watching how people treat others when they think no one's watching. You were the only one who didn't perform. You just acted, like it was second nature. And suddenly, Shanice realized the full irony. Brad had fired her for breaking rules. Letitia was hiring her because she broke them, for the right reasons. The board wanted someone with an MBA, Letitia added, with a smirk that could cut marble. I told them I'd rather hire someone with backbone. Shanice sat back, dazed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Letitia replied, rising. Take the weekend. We start Monday, if you're ready. Patricia walked her to the elevator, and Shanice floated like the folder in her hands was a helium balloon tied to a mortgage-sized miracle. Outside, reality reintroduced itself in the form of a vibrating phone. Brad. Shanice picked up, already bracing. Shanice, you need to come back. Now, something weird's going on. A man in a suit, says he's from the state, walked in talking about buying the whole Jerry's chain, but they keep asking about you. What did you do? Shanice looked back at the skyscraper where she could almost see Letitia's silhouette in the 43rd floor window, cool as a courtroom closing argument. I helped someone who was hungry, she said flatly. That's all. Brad cleared his throat like he'd swallowed a court summons. Your job's still here, you know. If you want it, we can pretend this morning didn't happen. Across the street, a group of kids played basketball, their laughter rising like a gospel chorus. Shanice didn't answer immediately. She didn't need to, because in that moment, between the apology and the asphalt, she knew exactly which court she belonged on next. Their laughter carried through her car window, a sound so full of life it almost drowned out the echo of Brad's desperation. Shanice didn't hesitate. Thank you, Brad, she said, her voice wrapped in velvet but sharpened at the edge. But I don't think I'll be coming back. I think God has something else in mind for me. And with that, she hung up, leaving behind not just a job, but a system that punished conscience and rewarded compliance like it was a virtue. She opened the folder again, this time not as a hesitant applicant, but as a woman beginning to realize her power. The job wasn't about running events or filling out grant forms. It was about re-engineering hope from the ground up, designing lifelines instead of waiting for handouts. This was for destiny. And for every kid like her who knew the cost of ambition in a zip code that didn't come with legacy admissions or private coaching. Her phone buzzed again. Can't wait to tell you about the new moves Coach taught us. You're picking me up, right? Shanice smiled and texted back, You bet, baby. And wait till you hear what happened today. Then she started the car with hands that no longer trembled. Her mind, once preoccupied with rent and reheated leftovers, now danced with ideas, programs for single parents, scholarship pools for uniforms, mentorship circles for girls who'd been told too many times to be realistic. It was all possible now, all because she'd refused to treat decency like it was a liability. As she pulled up to Destiny's school, the golden light of late afternoon poured over Charlotte like grace in motion. Dozens of kids spilled out of the building, some dragging backpacks, others bouncing basketballs. Shanice spotted Destiny immediately, the tallest in her group, her stride confident, her joy unmistakable. "Mama!" she yelled, racing over, but she paused when she saw the uniform. "Why aren't you at work?" Shanice drew a breath. "Baby, we need to talk. But first, I want to hear about your day." As they drove, Destiny recounted her newest three-pointer, Coach Johnson's latest praise, and how she'd started teaching a younger girl her crossover move. Shanice listened closely, the pride in her chest building with every sentence. Free youth programs, real coaches, consistent access. They weren't concepts anymore. They were deliverables on the edge of becoming policy. They stopped at their favorite park, the one with the worn court where Destiny first learned to dribble. Shanice led her to their bench under the old oak tree, where every conversation felt like home. "Something happened today," she began, pulling the folder from her bag. "Actually, it started last night." She told Destiny everything. About the 4 loud men, the woman in the gray coat, the firing, and the job offer. Destiny's eyes grew round. "You mean the Letitia James, the real one? The attorney general who took down the bank that stole Miss Carla's house?" "That's the one." Shanice nodded. "And she wants you to work for her?" "That's right. But it's a big change. I'd be running programs for kids, not just food, real opportunities." "Like basketball camp?" Destiny beamed. "Even better." Shanice handed her the folder. "These are year-round. Training, clinics, mentorship, designed for kids who don't have access." Destiny traced her fingers across the photos. This is like a dream, Mama." "I know, baby, but there's something else. I lost my job this morning. That's why I wasn't at work." "Because of helping Ms. James?" "Because I broke the rules to help someone who needed it. I didn't know who she was, and I would have done the same for anyone." Destiny tilted her head. "Like when you give extra pancakes to Tommy." Shanice blinked. "You knew about that?" Destiny nodded solemnly. "I see you do nice things all the time. That's probably why she picked you." "Maybe." Shanice pulled her close. "But this job, it's bigger than anything I've ever done. What if I'm not good enough?" Destiny didn't hesitate. She straightened and dropped her voice into the stern tone Shanice used when bills were late. "You'll never know what you can do until you try." Shanice burst out laughing, surprised by the tears sneaking down her cheeks. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," Destiny said, hugging her hard. "You're going to be amazing, Mama, like always." They sat in silence, watching the sky slowly turn orange and pink. A few teens played pickup ball on the court, their sneakers squeaking against the asphalt, their energy unfiltered. "Those could be your programs," Destiny said softly. "You could help kids like Tommy's sister. She's so good, but they don't have money for training." Shanice looked at her daughter, not just with pride, but with clarity. This wasn't just about a promotion. This was infrastructure. And this time, she would be the one writing the rules. Even at 8, Destiny already understood the political economy of opportunity. Who gets it, who's denied it, and who steps up to make it possible? She wasn't just excited because her mom got a job. She sensed the shift in narrative. And it was real. Shanice's phone buzzed again. A text from Patricia. "Ms. James would like to know if you've made a decision. The board meets tomorrow morning." Looking at Destiny's hopeful face, the neighborhood kids bouncing worn-out basketballs, the very community she'd been quietly holding together for years without a title or salary, Shanice didn't need more time. "Want to help me write something, baby?" she asked, handing Destiny the phone. Together they typed, "I would be honored to accept the position. Thank you for seeing something in me that I didn't even see in myself." The reply came back almost immediately. Welcome to the team. Be here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And bring your daughter. There's someone I want her to meet." "Who do you think it is?" Destiny asked, practically vibrating in her seat. "I don't know, baby." Shanice smiled, eyes glinting with both pride and awe. "But I've got a feeling this is just the beginning of something big." They stood, brushing crumbs from their bench as a cool evening breeze swept through the park. The same breeze that had carried the scent of greasy coffee and confrontation through Jerry's diner just 24 hours earlier, when a supposedly powerless black woman had stood her ground and inadvertently passed the most important test of her life. "Mama," Destiny said softly as they reached the car, "I'm proud of you." Shanice gripped the wheel tighter, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm proud of us, baby. We're in this together." What neither of them knew was that a few blocks away, Letitia James was still at her desk, while most politicians were halfway through their nightly media strategy call, or better yet, on their third fundraiser of the week. Letitia was flipping through a manila folder marked Williams. Inside, a photo of Shanice serving mashed potatoes at the shelter last Christmas, a handwritten letter from Tommy's mother describing how she helped fill out a job application after hours, and a testimonial from Mrs. Johnson, typed, double-spaced, about a waitress who stayed late every Tuesday so a lonely widow wouldn't have to drink her coffee alone. Letitia added one more note in her own cursive. "Sometimes the biggest dreams come true when you're busy helping someone else survive theirs." The next morning, Shanice stared into her closet like it was the scene of a legal deposition. Every outfit looked like it had already pleaded guilty to being too working class, too soft, too practical, too waitressy. After trying on 5 different options and muttering to herself like a defense attorney on no sleep, she settled on her church dress. Navy blue. Modest. The one her mother gave her last Christmas. If you're going to walk into a room full of power players, at least do it with the ghost of your mama's standards holding your back. "Mama, we're gonna be late," Destiny hollered from the living room, already dressed in her cleanest jersey and the sneakers she saved for weeks to buy. "Coming, baby." Shanice looked in the mirror one last time. Her reflection wasn't glamorous, but it was grounded. Worn edges, clear eyes, back straight. "You can do this," she whispered. Not a plea, a promise. They arrived 20 minutes early. This time, Shanice didn't flinch at the marble floors or gold fixtures. When the security guard saw them, he grinned and handed over 2 visitor badges. "Welcome back, Ms. Williams." Upstairs, Patricia greeted them with her usual poise. "And you must be Destiny. We've heard so much about you." Destiny grinned. "Is it true I get to meet someone special today?" "Very special." Patricia winked. "But first, your mom has a meeting with the foundation board. Want to hang out in our game room? We've got a basketball court simulator." Destiny turned to Shanice. "Is that okay, Mama?" "Of course." Shanice squeezed her hand. "Have fun. I'll come find you after." Patricia led Shanice into a polished conference room filled with suits, expensive ones, judging by the confidence with which they ignored their coffee. But not all the faces were strangers. Sitting alongside the corporate power was the real board. Mrs. Johnson, Tommy's mom, Coach Johnson. Shanice froze. Letitia stood as she entered. "Everyone, this is Shanice Williams, our new Director of Community Justice Initiatives." She gestured to the seat beside her. "Shanice, meet the board." As Shanice sat, her eyes darted to the familiar faces, confused. Letitia spoke again, voice calm but surgical. "We've been watching you for months. Not just me, but the entire outreach team. We didn't ask your GPA. We asked your neighbors, your co-workers, the families you've helped." Mrs. Johnson leaned in, her voice firm despite age. "I told them how you stayed late every Tuesday to listen to me ramble about my husband, even when your shift ended." Tommy's mother chimed in. "I told them how you made space for my son when he had nowhere to go, and how you never made us feel like a burden." Coach Johnson nodded. "She volunteers after every game, even the ones her kid isn't in, picks up trash, brings extra water bottles." Shanice blinked, tears already rising. "I didn't know anyone was paying attention." Letitia smiled. "That's exactly why you're the right one, because you did it when you thought no one was watching." "That's exactly why you're perfect for this job," Letitia James said, sliding a crisp folder across the table like she was presenting closing arguments before a jury of skeptics. "You do the right thing when no one's watching. That's not just leadership, that's character." Shanice opened the folder and nearly dropped it. The number on that contract didn't whisper security, it shouted transformation. Full college scholarship for Destiny, health insurance starting immediately, a signing bonus big enough to make her forget the sound of her old Corolla's engine misfiring every Tuesday, enough to move out of that drafty apartment, buy a safe car, and finally set up a savings account that didn't rely on prayers and expired coupons. I don't know what to say," Shanice whispered. Mrs. Johnson, sitting beside her like a guardian angel disguised as a nosy neighbor, patted her hand and delivered the verdict. "Say yes, then go meet your new assistant coach." "My what?" Shanice blinked. Letitia smirked. "Remember I said there was someone special Destiny would meet? Well, she's already downstairs getting one-on-one time with Lisa Leslie." Shanice nearly choked. "You mean the Lisa Leslie? As in, the WNBA legend, Olympic gold medalist, dunking on your idols in heels Lisa Leslie? Who better to mentor our first youth scholarship recipient?" Letitia replied, handing her a pen like it was a wand. "Your daughter's got talent. We're just making sure she gets the tools to match it." As Shanice signed the contract, hand trembling like she was co-signing the Constitution, she thought back to every extra pancake she slid across the counter at the shelter, every double shift she pulled just to cover cleats, every thankless gesture of quiet resistance that never earned a raise but somehow brought her here. "When do I start?" she asked, her voice steadier than she expected. "You already have," Letitia said, standing and extending her hand. "Your first assignment is downstairs. Watch your daughter train with greatness." They walked toward the elevator, the weight of the moment hanging between them like a second set of shoulders. "You know," Letitia added softly, "when I was growing up, someone gave my family a chance when we needed it most. Sometimes it just takes one person to believe in you. You've been that person for so many, Shanice. Now it's your turn." The elevator doors opened to the rhythmic thump of a basketball and the unmistakable voice of Lisa Leslie barking encouragement. Destiny sprinted across the polished court, sinking a perfect 3 as if she'd been born in sneakers. Shanice's heart clenched in awe. Her daughter wasn't just playing. She was thriving. For once, Shanice let herself exhale. She had no idea that another test loomed, but in that moment, she didn't care. She was surrounded by people who saw her heart when all she had to offer was a tray and a backbone. 3 months passed like a fast break. Shanice embraced her new role at the Equal Path Initiative with the same drive she once poured into underpaid night shifts. Except now, instead of delivering fries, she was delivering futures. Her office overlooked the city, walls lined with thank you notes and crayon drawings from kids who now had shoes that fit. Destiny, meanwhile, had grown 2 inches and developed a jump shot that made Coach Johnson curse under his breath, then ask for a replay. Lisa Leslie trained her twice a week, but it was Destiny who chose to mentor younger kids on her own time. "Everyone deserves a chance," she told Shanice one afternoon, "just like my mama always said." Today, Shanice sat hunched over her desk, surrounded by applications for the next scholarship round. Funding was available for 20 kids, but over 200 had applied. Every page told a story. Single moms juggling 3 jobs, families living in cars, one boy writing his essay with a borrowed pen from a library counter. "How am I supposed to choose?" Shanice muttered, spreading the papers out like confessions. She was so focused, she barely noticed the email alert flashing in the corner of her screen. Subject line, "Urgent Financial Audit Review." Her stomach dropped. She clicked. Her hands began to shake. The spreadsheets didn't lie. Large sums had been shifting, disappearing, reappearing, disguised in line-item camouflage. It wasn't petty theft. It was institutional sleight of hand. A few wrong clicks and this entire program could implode under the weight of its own goodwill. "This can't be real," Shanice whispered, scrolling faster. But the patterns were there, clear as daylight. 6-figure transactions with no paper trail, like someone thought compassion could be covered with creative accounting. Her new office suddenly felt like a cell. She thought of all the kids depending on these scholarships, of Destiny's face that first day on the court, of all the dreams they'd just begun to make real. She had come this far on faith. But now it was time to find out if faith was enough to confront the truth. About Tommy's sister who just started training last week. The right thing to do was obvious. Report it. But right doesn't always mean easy, because what if this wasn't a mistake? What if this crack exposed a landslide? What if her phone call brought it all down? The scholarships, the clinics, the roof over Destiny's future. Shanice's hand hovered over her phone. Her pulse throbbed like a warning, but she already knew fear was a liar with a clipboard and a polished voice. She took a deep breath and dialed Letitia's private number. "Ms. James, we need to talk," she said, keeping her voice even. "It's about the Foundation's finances." A pause, then the calm reply, "Come to my office." Nothing in her tone. No panic, no denial, just protocol and power. As Shanice walked through the long corridor, floor-to-ceiling windows offered her a cruel view. Kids laughing on the courts below, sneakers squeaking across hope itself. And she wondered, just for a second, if doing the right thing might be the very thing that unraveled them all. Letitia sat behind her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, the same financial report open in front of her. "I found irregularities in the accounts," Shanice began, her hands clenched at her sides. "Large sums moved between funds without documentation. I couldn't ignore it." She expected a flinch, a denial, even some manufactured PR response, but Letitia's expression didn't change. "You knew this might cost you everything, and still you brought it to me." Shanice didn't blink. "These kids deserve better than a dream built on deceit. My daughter deserves better than a future financed by fiction." Then, finally, Letitia smiled, a slow, deliberate unraveling of tension. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear." Shanice blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "There are no missing funds," Letitia said calmly. "The entries were altered temporarily as a test. Your final test. We had to know. When it wasn't safe, when no one was watching, would you still choose truth? Shanice sat down hard. A test? Letitia nodded. Integrity is not an asset we list in the annual report, but it's the only thing keeping the roof from collapsing. You passed. She slid another contract across the desk. Thicker, weightier. How would you like to be our new executive director? Shanice stared. But what about the current director? Retiring. And frankly, we've been grooming you for this since day one. You've proven your compassion, your discipline, and now your ethics. Outside, Destiny was coaching a younger girl on her jump shot, her arms moving just like Shanice's used to when she reached for a coffee pot after 12 hours on her feet. I'd be honored, Shanice said, reaching for the pen, then paused. But I want one thing added. Letitia raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want to restructure the scholarships. Smaller amounts for more kids. No more of this top 20 nonsense. Every kid deserves a shot. Letitia leaned back, grinning. That's exactly why you're right for this. That evening, Shanice sat at the park watching Destiny and her new friends run drills under the late sun. The contract sat folded in her bag, signed and sealed, Executive Director. She still couldn't believe this all started with a late-night confrontation and a cold cup of tea. Her phone buzzed. Maria, from the diner. You won't believe this. Jerry's just got bought out. Some big company's turning every location into youth centers with basketball courts. Word is, it's your fault. Shanice smiled. Letitia hadn't just elevated her. She was flipping the script on an entire city, one greasy booth at a time. Mama! Destiny ran over, sweaty and beaming. Can we get ice cream? I promise we'll practice after. Shanice didn't hesitate. Absolutely. They walked to the ice cream shop, followed by a cluster of eager kids swapping dreams like trading cards. Marcus wanted to coach. Sarah had her heart set on college ball. Jenny, Tommy's sister, was already mapping her WNBA draft night. Save room for dinner, Shanice warned, or I'm getting angry phone calls from all your moms. As they licked their cones, Jenny looked up. Miss Shanice? How come you help so many kids now? Don't you miss being a waitress? Shanice thought about it, letting the question land. You know what I miss? The little moments of helping people. But now, I get to turn those moments into systems. I get to help at scale. Like turning Jerry's into a basketball place? Marcus grinned. Shanice blinked. How did you know about that? My mom works there. She says you're like a guardian angel or something. Back home that night, after the kids had gone and Destiny was finishing her math homework, Shanice reviewed the foundation's latest financials. Everything looked pristine. Too pristine. Something about the donation timestamps felt off. Curious, she dug deeper. Some contributions were logged for future months. Funds promised, not received. On paper, it all added up. But in time, the numbers were premature, like someone trying to stretch a budget with optimism instead of actual dollars. And that's when Shanice's stomach dropped again. It was like someone had been counting money they didn't yet have, as if optimism now qualified as a line item on a non-profit budget. Shanice's stomach tightened like it was bracing for a punch. Was this another test? One more trial from Letitia's playbook of righteous provocations? Or was something really broken this time? Her thumb hovered over the call button, but she stopped herself. If she wanted the title, she had to earn the burden. Executive directors don't cry wolf. They build the damn watchtower. For the next 2 hours, she became a forensic accountant in hoop earrings, dissecting every entry, every timestamp, every suspiciously sunny projection. And there it was, pledged donations recorded as received funds, inflating the budget like a parade float no one could afford. On paper, everything looked strong. In reality, it was a sandcastle at high tide. "Mama?" Destiny's voice pierced the room like a whistle. She stood in the doorway in her pajamas, one sock on, hair still damp from her shower. "It's past bedtime. You said we both need sleep to play our best." Shanice closed her laptop halfway and softened. "You're right, baby. I just need to finish something important." Destiny padded over and looked at the screen. "Is something wrong?" Her voice lowered. "You've got your worried face on." Shanice pulled her close. "Remember how you said I was teaching you to help others? Sometimes helping means doing the hard thing. Like when you told Coach about that broken backboard, even though no one wanted to speak up." Destiny nodded solemnly. "Exactly. And now, I think I found more problems. Real ones this time." Destiny didn't flinch. She wrapped her arms around her mom's waist and whispered, "Then you'll fix them. That's what you do, Mama. You fix things." At sunrise, Shanice strode into the Foundation's office with a binder in one hand and certainty in the other. The receptionist blinked at her. "Ms. James isn't in yet." "That's okay," Shanice said. "I need to speak with the board, all of them." 1 hour later, Shanice stood at the head of the boardroom table, her palms damp but her voice rock steady. She handed out her report like it was evidence in a corruption trial. "I found serious discrepancies in our financial reports," she began. "We're logging pledged funds as though they've already been received. It makes us look more solvent than we are. If we don't fix it now, this entire foundation could collapse." Silence. The kind of silence reserved for verdicts and funerals. Letitia leaned back in her chair, arms folded, face unreadable. Shanice pressed on. "I know this isn't what anyone wants to hear, but the kids we serve deserve more than smoke and mirrors. They deserve transparency. They deserve truth. Real dreams require real money, not accounting fiction. And if it means losing this job, I'd rather go than stay silent." The silence stretched, and then Letitia started to laugh. Shanice blinked, stunned. "Ma'am?" Letitia stood, grinning like someone who had finally heard a verdict go the way she hoped. "You really are something else, Shanice Williams. You just passed the real test, the one we didn't plan." Shanice glanced around the room. The other board members, once stiff in their suits, were now smiling. "What do you mean, the real test?" Letitia gestured toward the window. Below, kids were already gathering for morning drills, their bright jerseys like splashes of possibility against the concrete. "See the girl in the blue shirt?" Shanice squinted. "That's Brad's daughter," Letitia said. "Your old manager?" "Brad?" Shanice's mouth fell open. "When we bought the diner chain, we learned he wasn't just a petty rule hugger. He was trying to save every dime to send his daughter to basketball camp. He was cutting corners, pulling triples, and yes, being an inflexible, short-tempered pain, because he was desperate." Shanice watched the girl sink a free throw like it was personal. "I had no idea." "None of us ever do," Letitia said. "That's why we need leadership that looks past balance sheets and sees the whole picture. The irregularities you found, they're real. But they're not fraud. They're desperation. Our accountant was trying to stretch the budget, same way you used to stretch mashed potatoes at the diner." Tears welled in Shanice's eyes. "So, reporting it proved I'd tell the truth even when it's complicated?" Letitia nodded. That's not something we can teach. That's who you are. At that moment, the boardroom door swung open. Patricia stepped in with Lisa, Leslie, and Destiny, whose face was glowing like a victory parade. Sorry to interrupt, Patricia said, but someone here has a little news. Destiny bounced on her heels. Mama, I made the junior national team. Lisa says I might be the youngest player ever. Shanice choked on a breath and hugged her daughter so tightly it was a miracle bones didn't crack. I'm so proud of you, baby. Destiny pulled back. But wait, there's more. She looked at Letitia. I told him I won't play unless kids like Jenny and Marcus get chances too. You know, like you always say. Letitia cleared her throat. Which brings us to why this board meeting was really called. Shanice, we want to expand the foundation, nationwide, youth centers in every city, starting by converting every Jerry's Diner we bought, and we want you to lead it. Shanice sat down hard. The room tilted. The world shifted. She gripped the edge of the table like it might float away. Letitia slid another folder toward her. Time to turn pancakes into pipelines. What do you say? Nationwide? Shanice repeated, blinking like someone had just handed her the keys to the country. Letitia James nodded without missing a beat. You've proven yourself in every category that matters, not just in our staged evaluations, but through the chaos we didn't script. You've shown the one truth no grant report can capture. Success means nothing unless it pulls others up with it. She slid the new contract across the table with all the nonchalance of a woman offering you the future. So, what do you say? Ready to help kids across the country chase their dreams instead of watching them get priced out of them? Shanice looked at Destiny, who responded with a nod so fierce it could have powered a stadium. Her mind raced, not just through her own life, but through every parent juggling 2 jobs, every kid perfecting a jump shot on a cracked sidewalk with a deflated ball, every dream that lived off crumbs and hope. She reached for the contract, then paused. One condition, she said, her voice clear. Letitia tilted her head. Name it. Brad gets his job back, managing the first youth center, and his daughter gets a full scholarship. Letitia smiled. Already done. Turns out you're not the only one who believes in second chances. 6 months later, Shanice stood on stage at the grand opening of the first converted Jerry's Youth Center. The original diner's faded sign still hung inside, not as a relic of greasy menus, but as a reminder that change begins in the most unlikely places. The parking lot had been reborn as a regulation basketball court. The dining area? Now filled with top-grade training equipment, mentorship stations, and murals painted by the very kids it now served. In the crowd, Brad stood beside his daughter, both in foundation jerseys, both grinning like people who knew firsthand what redemption tasted like. Next to them were Tommy and Jenny, fresh off varsity wins, and Marcus, clipboard in hand, already shouting drills at the junior squad. Destiny stood beside her mother in full junior national team uniform, her posture as proud as her stats. From their late night, maybe someday talks to this moment, it felt like crossing a finish line she didn't know she was running. Dreams come in all sizes, Shanice told the crowd, her voice amplified over the speakers, but grounded in lived truth. Sometimes they look like sinking a game-winning 3. Sometimes they look like defending a stranger. But the biggest dreams, the ones that really matter, they're the dreams you help someone else reach. She caught Letitia's eye in the crowd. The Attorney General was standing quietly, wearing a baseball cap that looked suspiciously familiar. And on her face, that same knowing smile, the kind that says you passed every test we didn't tell you about, because sometimes the smallest acts of courage flip the entire script, not just for one waitress or one kid, but for a whole community, for an entire generation, for a nation hungry for decency wrapped in action, not hashtags. And the truth, there had never really been a test, just life, showing up every day with two choices, what's easy and what's right. Shanice had made her choice the same way every single time. Without cameras, without titles, just one open heart, one helping hand, and a stubborn refusal to let broken systems kill worthy dreams. That was the victory. That was the legacy. That was the real game changer. And this was only the beginning. Thanks for being with me for this incredible story of resilience, second chances, and justice, both on and off the court. Drop your city and state in the comments if you're watching from somewhere that still believes in heart over headlines. And if this story moved you even a little, don't forget to hit like and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Kindness isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the greatest power of all.